What is up, everyone? This is ScherBR talking. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're gonna make a full review for the musical festival tree banner that brings Minstrel, a support unit that can heal HP, PP, and cleanse the party. Then we have Lute, a farmer with slash and hit damage that can also chase with a different attack. Then there is Doll, a boss specialist. We're gonna talk about Minstrel first because he gives the name to the banner. He is the main character here. We have 4 different versions of Minstrel in the game. The very first one was a new DX exclusive. The second one is a new year. Then the third one was released alongside Itoken's banner. The fourth one, the current one that uses swords and do slash damage, contrary to the past ones that were focused on clubs, blunt, and sun damage. But the good thing is that you can inherit skills freely because both weapons are focused on STR. Well, we shall compare the last 2 versions because it makes more sense. We have the same STR but way higher endurance and will. It's night and day. We even have a damage reduction passive. The past version of him was pretty squishy, took a lot of damage on remembrance battles, but it does offer some utility. But right now we have 100% endurance and will that makes him very defensive as a support unit. But he took some risks here. His dexterity is even lower than his first release and even lower than some launch units. 62% dexterity is abysmal, and he can even miss in many challenges. But if you are bringing Matriarch with Pin on Peace, you're gonna fix that pretty easily. His agility is 85, could have been better because he actually wants to go first most of the time. His intelligence is only 30%. Well, that means that inheriting debuff attacks from past style will not help. His love and charisma are on 50, that's pretty average. Well, we have 1 arrow for STR, double arrows for endurance because, well, he doesn't want to take much damage. We have bonuses for both endurance and will. And if you want to find other stuff, you can easily find agility in his New Year style. As for passives, the first one is called Healing Reverb. On the end of a turn, there is a 25% chance to recover all surviving allies HP by around 160 and cleanse them from all sorts of status elements. Well, first of all, 25% means once every 4 turns on average. That is not reliable, but it helps in long fights to reduce the stress of your main healer, and he can heal with another skill, but we'll talk more about that later. But the cleanse part does not seem so helpful because when you get inflicted with ailments, you usually want to cleanse instantly. Unless it triggers exactly on the right moment, this will not be good. Then the second passive is called Revitalize 4. On the end of a turn, there's 25% chance to recover his own HP by around 800, and also 4 points of BP. Both passives have different triggers, so you can trigger one or even both on a turn. So he will be on high HP most of the time, and this 4 BP will help him use his best attack. Then passive number 3 is called High Protect Tension, increasing damage by 20% and reducing the damage he receives by 30%. So very nice with such big endurance and will, so that he survives better, and 20% damage increase barely matters anyway. It could even be Underwall Defense 6 since he's not focusing on helping deal damage. As for skills, the first one is Defensive Support. For free, you get a slash attack with 8 mod that will grant him Guard Up Small for 2 turns. Guard Up Small decreases damage by 12% alongside minus 30 with high protect tension and big enough endurance and will. It helps him with sustain and to use something when he does not have enough BP to use his best attack. The second one is called Sound of the Shield. For 6 BP, you have an 8 power attack with 29 mod. Entry level damage, but then it grants himself a damage block that lasts for 1 turn in 1 time. That means that if you get hit in that turn, you will negate the first hit. If the boss attacks many times, then he takes the second hit and beyond. If there's too many enemies, won't help as much, but it does help against a single boss, and if it has single target attacks, you can even place it in the middle of a formation like Rising Phoenix X, and he can take the first hit, helping out the party. Remember that he can trigger 800 heal to himself, so even if he takes the second hit, he won't be killed easily. Now, the third one is called the Minstrel Notes. For 9 BP, you have a full AoE attack that deals 8 power slash damage, recover all surviving allies HP by around 160, and also gives 1 BP to everyone, including himself. So on the end, you actually only spent 8 BP. For being 9 as a cost, it's already very good for that Master Remembrance because you have to attack with AoE every 3 turns. But in long fights, you should not even care about it being AoE because you only want the guarantee heal and the plus BP. It will help when you are using a character like Mirza, for example, that has a 10 BP Steel Blade Light and reduce that to 9 if you are not bringing Nawal's Daughter together or even Itoken, for example. So you reduce the turns you need to wait for big attacks. Now that we know about Minstrel Kit, we should compare him to our best support units. The first one, and more important, being Itoken. In my opinion, they fight for the same spot in the party, and it's hard to slot the both in the same setup. They have access to the same things, but differently. First of all, Punishing Wave is a 25% chance to give all surviving allies BP. It's on average once every 4 turns, right? Minstrel does that with an active skill that he can use at least once every 3 turns, or even short periods of time if he triggers his passive that gives 4 BP. So in this regard, Minstrel wins. But the second part, the healing energy, on the end of a turn he has a 37% chance to heal all surviving allies for higher values than Minstrel because of higher love and charisma. So, Minstrel is only 25%. It's a 50% increase. The second thing, he has access to Hero's War Song, a 5 BP skill that heals everyone for around 170, buffs love and cleanses. In this regard, Itoken beats Minstrel. Minstrel needs at least 8 or 9 BP to do damage, heal, and give 1 BP. But here we have a lower cost to heal. The damage part from Minstrel should mostly be ignored because in the end, what we want is the HP and BP part. So you also have a guarantee to cleanse when you want, instead of having to rely on 25% chance to trigger a passive. If your enemy inflicted charm or confusion in any of your units, you want it to be removed right now and not rely on RNG, for example. So Itoken wins on the heal part. He also wins on the cleanse part. He only loses on the BP gain part. But Itoken is not just about this. He's also an offensive buffer with First Rhythm, a fast support skill that buffs STR, Dexterity, and Intelligence, the 3 main attributes for damage. Save martial arts that needs both STR and agility. But he also buffs Love to just keep increasing the status to heal better and better. When used together with Matriarch, for example, he can switch between the needs. Right now, I need to heal. Okay, let's use Hero's War Song. Now I need to buff more damage because I want to nuke with Leon. Let's use First Rhythm. Especially because we usually bring one other healer in a boss fight, like Mirza for Steel Blade Light, or Leon or Gennard, or also Rag Robin for Steel Blade Phoenix, doing slash and hit damage. So he actually is just a companion for healer and a support that can switch between heal and offensive. So Itoken really is diverse and one of the best characters in the game. While Minstrel tries to do similar stuff, but by having damage on the third skill, he actually became worse. Because if it was a lower cost without damage, then he could just keep using this. This is something that will be fixed in his future style that just got released on JP. We'll talk more about that later. But in this case, Itoken is the champion and he's returning on a rerun banner. So hence why it's hard to justify pulling for Minstrel if you get Itoken, since both are not needed. You will bring someone that has a bigger heal potential. Now, another character that I want to talk about is Gianna. Why? Because Gianna just got released, and she has access to some other stuff that can be compared as well. She won't give VP to the party, but she will buff, endurance will, heal, and cleanse with Prayer for Peace. She can use this every 2 turns. Some fights will require you to bring an extra will buffer instead of just bringing Matriarch, so she can be your companion, and cleansing if needed, and buffing endurance and will to reduce the damage. So she also performs similar to Minstrel, and she can revive if something bad happens with Wild Rose. So, in my opinion, she brings more to the table when you are already bringing Itoken. she does not clash with him, for example. So, two recent units, and if you got them, it's hard to go for Minstrel once again. Another character that is kind of comparable should be White Rose for the heal part at least. Her Christmas style has a 37% chance to heal on the end, but she can't heal with AoE and cheap skills, only with single targets, so it's comparable but not so close. In her off-banner version, she has a 25% chance to heal only. And another character that we need to talk is a Spell Girl, because she can heal with a guarantee every single turn. And she can be that companion for when you need a big healer with Steelblade Light or Steelblade Phoenix, and she can just help out by not allowing you to get to low HP in turns that you don't have that skill available. And she also has access to Guard Up, so there is that. In my opinion, it's not that Minstrel is bad, he's not. Don't get me wrong, he actually has an interesting kit, but he's competing against people that are better on the job and are on their prime. They do better than Minstrel most of the time. If you don't have access to these characters I mentioned, it makes sense to summon for Minstrel, but they just got released or had a rerun. Now the next character is Lute, and this is his first premium style. Lute is a farmer that uses swords and can do slash and hit damage. Well, his STR is 115%, his agility is 93%, we have bonuses and arrows for both, those are the main status that you want when farming, and a good enough dexterity here, 80%, it's good enough. The other status don't matter, you should not bring him to boss fights anyway. But one thing needs to be said, his STR is not impressive. We have 115% with Rick as well, and he's kinda old now, and they are both similar, with Rick having more utility. We'll talk more about that later. Moving on, for passives we have in core. Millenniating attack, he has a 37% chance to chase with an attack called Brave Song that is full AoE, slash and hit, and has a power. Well, very strong, huh? But it only uses rank 1. Well, it should be compared to a B power attack on max rank. And this is similar to Creator. Creator has 37% chance to chase as well, but Creator chases with weaker attacks. The good thing about Lute is that you can use him, for example, when you just got in a new event and you don't know the weaknesses of the enemies and you just bring him, or on Hidden Dojo, or in Cleaning Tower. But on general farming, you want your character to either kill or help kill enemies. It's hard to justify using a character with a random chance to chase. Then we have Strengthen and Attack 2. That increases damage by 15% and gives him plus 2 BP. And High Battle Tension increases damage by 20 and gives him another BP, reaching 13 when he starts, and 35% damage increase. Well, now we need to compare him to Rick, because they do similar attacks, and Rick has 30% damage increase, and starts the fight with 13 BP as well, but buffs all surviving allies STR by 10%, including himself. Rick is going to do slightly more damage, but they are pretty much comparable. But since he buffs all other surviving allies, Rick is the winner. Now for skills, the first one I want to talk is the third one, Flame Frenzy. For 13 BP, you can use this on turn 1, you get access to slash and hit damage S power in 39 mod. It's even fast on global, so a very useful skill for farming that we have been using with Rick for quite a long time, since the Perfector banner. And then Arthur happened, and Arthur has a bigger damage output because of his chase attack. Sometimes you can even use them together, depending on the situations. But the difference here is that after Flame Frenzy, Rick can follow up with Fire Flash, an attack that has hit and slash. Maria's Lute only follows up with slash, so his damage on turn 2 is restricted to only slash. If the enemies are only with 2 hit, well, you see that you have some limitation. But Lute wins in one thing, Uplifting Song. This is a fast AoE attack with slash and hit again, and has C power. But after attacking, he grants all surviving allies morale up, so made for farming, right? It's nice because if there's many characters attacking, you are buffing all of them, it increases damage by 35%. But then, one good usage could be Talon. Let's say that Talon is missing out a little extra damage to kill a wave, then you use Lute first and then Talon with Missile Cannon. You can place them together on a hurricane formation, for example. Lute gets an increased agility, so he goes first, and then Talon gets a decreased agility, means that he goes second, but both are fast. They will kill the enemies before they attack. That is when they are weak to heat, something that they match. Other powerful attackers with 2-turn cycles will work well with Lute, but there's one thing. It will be better to just bring 2 characters that can do 8 power 2 times in a row instead of using Lute to amplify the second attacker, right? So while good, it just doesn't have very good utility in the future where you can just bring 2 big damage dealers instead of just amplifying the damage of the second. So that's his main setup. He can inherit Mirage Blade, and you can amplify that into Mirage Blade Plus, much like Rick, that also has access to this, to attack 2 times with the Power 22 mod. That works well in some farming setups. Same thing that Christmas Rupina can do as well. So you can even use these 3 characters together if the enemies have too much HP. And you can also inherit Doppelganger's Plus for single target damage, but he cannot use this 2 times in a row since the cost is a little too high. This character also has access to Heaven on Earth Plus, just like Rick, and can attack 3 times in a row, but the damage is just not that high. What will make sense in the future is Shimmering Slash that will be amplified into a 10 BP attack with triple S slash damage. But he's not the only one with access to this. There is a future version of Albert that's pretty close that can amplify this, will do bigger damage, and is a pretty popular character. So Lute is left with just being too similar to Rick, a character that's been released a lot of time ago, and he just cannot exactly beat him in all setups. What he has is the chase mechanic, but the chase mechanic is not reliable when you really want to farm for constant setups. With that said, Lute only receives a standard double S grade in our tier list. He loses to Rick and loses to Arthur. That's just being rerun on a dedicated banner. If you want to skip him, it's pretty easy and will get stronger farmers in the future. Also, as an additional note, there is no future version of Lute, so he is what you see. Now we need to talk about Doll. She has 3 different styles in the game, all of them are limited. The first one was released on April of the last year, not to be messed with. Then exactly what I aimed for was released on the summer of this year, and now Hobby Violinist. She's a gunner with access to blunt, shadow, and even cold attacks. When comparing to the past styles, what we have here is similar endurance, inferior dexterity when compared to her summer style, because she's less as a damage dealer and more as a support unit. The agility is pretty much the same, the intelligence is much higher now, because she can apply effects. Her will is inferior, and love and charisma won't matter too much. We have double arrows for intelligence, 1 arrow for dexterity, and she's focusing on those 2 things. Her agility is also pretty high for a non-mage or a non-martial artist. Now, the first passive is called Warring Wave 1. On the end of a turn, she has a 37% chance to give all surviving allies 15 points of OG Gouge. And let me tell you, this is terrible because it relies on RNG, and characters that actually benefit a lot from Overdrive are those that trigger a special effect, like Mask and others in the future. Mask heal all surviving allies when he triggers Overdrive. That could help, but it relies so much on RNG. It will depend if Doll is actually really helping the party with her remaining setup. Then the second passive, Mastery 1 Dexterity and Intelligence. On the start of a turn, she buffs her Dexterity and Intelligence by 5%. After 4 turns, because of buff decay, she has around 10% active at all times, and recovers 1 BP. So she has 4 BP per turn. She needs this because of high cost attacks. Then High Protect Tension decreases all damage she receives by 30% and increases her damage by 20. So the only damage passive, she's not a damage dealer, but at least she survives well in boss fights because of the damage reduction. But her status are very bad. Look on the endurance, and the will is very average, so even with the damage reduction, she may take big hits. As for skills, I want to talk about the third one first. Dusk Racking, a full AoE attack with 10 BP that deals blunt and shadow damage with 8 power. Also critical against undead. An attack with shadow that is critical against undead, that's actually pretty funny. And when the attack lands, it will grant all targets Morale down medium that lasts for 2 turns. First of all, Morale down medium, it's exclusive to doll right now, and after the launch of the small version that decreases damage by 15%, took quite some time on JP to launch the medium version, so that's actually something from the future. But the thing is, it lasts for 2 turns, so the MVP coast, 2 turns, she gets access to 4, that means that you can have this active at all times, but they wanted to fix that in a way, so they gave her Spread Shot, a 3 BP AoE attack, pretty good for the power. It also grants the target morale down, this time small, for 2 turns. That decreases damage by 15%. So you can decrease it on the start by a bigger value. Then when you don't have enough BP, you use Spread Shot till you regain BP to use Dust Cracking again. You have to keep changing between one or the another. Is it good enough? Depends. Let's say on the start of a fight is where the boss usually does more damage. Then you start applying buffs or debuffs, and the damage will decrease. So morale down small can be okay. But I don't know, since it's a jump in the value, if she could keep this up, that would mean that she will be awesome. But there is one thing. Well, we have Melissa that has morale down small with Martini Ball. Like I was saying, this was the first time they released it. But we also have Goddess. Goddess apply morale down small with a 10 BP attack. Lasts for 3 turns. She gets 4 BP per turn. That means in 3 turns she has 12. So she can use this at all times. The attack is good enough, but it also applies Guard Up. So you decrease 15% on the source and increase your resistance by 12. In the end, you have similar results, but Goddess can keep the bigger value at all times, and she has the gimmick of buffing even further when she heals, either with a single target spell or with a AoE that she can inherit from her past style. So Doll cannot beat this skill set of Goddess. She can't, because she's only using this style without inheritance, and she cannot keep up the big value. That's why it's hard to justify summoning for Doll if you have Goddess already, and she just got released, and Doll is inferior in this regard. Well, beside this kit, she also has access to Shadow Net, a full AoE support fast spell that applies Paralyze with a medium chance. Well, this is the biggest chance to inflict Paralyze as an AoE because it's fast, and while being support, it does not rely your accuracy. It will try to inflict. So all you need is a big intelligence, and if it's big enough, it will apply Paralyze to the targets. Very nice, she's the champion for this, but if you summon it for a character like Vagnus, Vagnus can inherit Psycho Shot from his Platinum style. This attack here deals damage and has medium chance to paralyze as well. And since Wagner has access to a lot of VP, 6 per turn, he can use this many times and do damage on the same time. So we also have plenty of other paralyzers, so it's not exactly something as unique as Petrify or Charm. As for Inheritance, I don't think anything makes much sense. Her past version is damage oriented, will be better using the attacks, and the first one has Power Grab at least. This one always debuffs STR if the attack lands, and also recover HP by around 800, allowing her to survive well. But besides, nothing else will matter. She's all about running skill 3 and then skill 1. With that said, she is a support unit that will receive a standard double S grade. She is good, although may not offer enough to justify pulling for her. As additional information, there's no future version of Doll on JP, at least so far, so what you see is what you have. And her Glow X style is rerunning on Arthur's banner, although they have different focus and the inheritances won't help. With that said, back to the banner image. Is this banner worth summoning for? In my opinion, no. I'll only give this a bronze award, but if you are a fan of the characters you can summon, I would recommend Minstrel if it was a different time, but we just got the rerun of Itoken, and like I said, they clash, and Itoken is the better character. We have Lute, that is comparable to Rick, a character that has been released for quite some time. And we have the rerun of Arthur, that is the superior character. And there's Doll that had an interesting mechanic, but in the end, she is outclassed by Goddess that has a better setup and she was available just now. So it is hard to justify pulling right now when you have a 5 character banner with very strong styles that are still useful and better than these. So that's my opinion. What is yours? Please say here in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe if you haven't. If you want to support the channel, use the links on the description. Hope to see you soon in the next one. Bye.